Hello and welcome to the 8-man hard mode Operator 9 boss fight guide. My name's Hayete, and today we'll be going over everything you need to know to successfully complete the third fight in the Terror from Beyond operation. For this encounter, we suggest you bring a standard composition of 2 tanks, 4 DPS, and 2 healers. Any class composition will be more than capable of beating this fight. However, while not ideal, this fight can be solo tanked, either with or without a taunt-capable DPS if extra DPS is required. So let's start off with the DPS requirements for this fight. The encounter is broken up into 2 phases. While the second phase is quite simple to analyze, the first phase solely depends on your group's capabilities. This means some groups will push faster than others, and this makes a generalized analysis next to impossible. Between both phases, there are several adds you'll encounter. The following is the individual health of each type of add followed by a multiplier for the max number of each add type you'll encounter during Phase 1. It is possible to fill certain subphases during Phase 1, which would increase the adds associated with that specific subphase. The information you see here is under ideal circumstances, assuming no subphase is filled. I'll cover later during strategy explanation exactly what these different subphases are and how to pass or fill them. With that said, there is no enrage associated with Phase 1. However, for each subphase failed, raid-wide damage taken will increase. This essentially means fail too many subphases during Phase 1 and your group will die due to unmanageable damage taken. I'll cover in detail what associated mechanic contributes to this and the specifics of the damage scaling shortly. Okay, so now that I've got you good and confused, let's move on to Phase 2, which is much easier to discuss. Phase 2 has an enrage time of 6 minutes. The following shows the individual health of each encountered enemy, followed by a multiplier for the max number of each you'll face during Phase 2. Adding all this up, you'll find a total health of 3,640,940 HP. Since there are set intervals where the boss is completely immune to damage, the enrage time has been adjusted to account for this. The following shows this analysis and the new enrage time. Dividing the total health by our enrage time in seconds gives a total DPS requirement of 13,792 DPS. Since your tank should be capable of pulling at least 1,000 DPS each, during this phase, we can adjust this total down to 11,792 DPS. Dividing this by 4 gives an individual DPS requirement per DPS player of 2,948 DPS. Finally, multiplying this figure by our enrage time in seconds gives an individual damage requirement per DPS player of 778,235. Keep in mind here, guys, that this is the analysis based on the bare minimum required to beat the fight. Your own numbers should be and probably will be much higher than this. So let's move now to mechanics. To warn you, some of these mechanics may not make a whole lot of sense up front. However, during our strategy explanation, you'll see how all the pieces fit together. So for now, just do your best to understand each individual mechanic. Number 1. Defragmenters and Recognizers. These adds are the first you'll engage as the fight begins. These adds have no specific mechanics. However, it is worth noting that these adds can only be permanently aggroed through the use of a taunt, and can be stunned, CC'd, and interrupted. Number 2. Regulators. Regulators have a few different mechanics inherent to them. The first is End of Line. This is a 1.5 second channeled knockback and stun. This ability is interruptible. The second is Fragment. This is an attack that leaves a 5-second trauma debuff on the affected target, which reduces all healing received. This debuff is not cleansable. The third is a 5-second stun, which is directed at its current target. Number 3. Rectifiers. Rectifiers are only seen if a subphase is failed. As the subphase is failed, this add will spawn. Its only notable mechanic is Data Disk. This is a single target attack that is thrown at its current target. Upon striking the target, the data disk shatters and divides, hitting all players within 10 meters of the original target. Number 4. Data Cores. Data Cores have no inherent mechanics themselves, but are a key component in dealing with the overall movement of the fight. More to come on this during strategy explanation. Number 5. Color Sphere. These adds are directly tied to individual subphases, and will be named in line with its parent subphase. If a player attacks the sphere and is not associated with its subphase, that player will be continuously stunned and damaged by the sphere. Number 6. Color Obtuse. This is a buff gained by the player who kills their properly aligned colored sphere. Number 7. Corrupted AI. This is a pulse wave that damages all raid members within the encounter. This raid-wide damage propagates every 9 seconds. Number 8. Color Convex. This is a debuff gained by a player as they enter the colored circle matched to their color alignment. This will stack to a maximum of 2 stacks. Number 9. Black Obtuse. This is an 8-second channel by Operator 9 that upon completion will do extreme raid-wide damage to the entire group if not properly deactivated. If this completes without deactivation, it has a high chance of instantly killing several raid members. Number 10. Deletion Protocol. During Deletion Protocol, a random raid member will be targeted by Operator 9 over the course of 5 seconds. Once the 5-second Deletion Protocol has ended, if the player targeted by Operator 9 is not shielded, the player will die instantly. So those are the main mechanics you'll need to be aware of for this encounter. Let me now show you how to form all of that into a working strategy. To start, let's cover how to set up your group before entering the encounter. As you approach the entrance to the fight, you'll be met by 4 colored panels. You'll want to assign 2 raid members to each color, a group to center, a group to channel, and a group for first deletion. Believe me, there are several ways to do this, so by no means is the following build the only way, but this is our suggested build. Assign your 2 strongest DPS to blue, a DPS and healer to orange, a DPS and tank to purple, and a tank and healer to yellow. Once you've done that, we suggest setting them up in the raid frame in the following format. Okay, so now let me explain the general idea for Phase 1. Then, once you have a general understanding of what is going on, I'll cover more detailed information regarding Phase 1. So the room is split into 2 areas, north and south. Along the outer edge of both areas are 4 shielded data cores. In the middle of the room is an area occupied by 4 pillars and the master controller. As you start the fight, 2 blue spheres will spawn from these locations. These spheres will move towards the center of the room. Once there, one will circle around on the inside of the pillars and the other on the outside of them. The circle around the master controller will turn blue as well. This is the setup for the blue subphase. Any blue raid member that enters the central blue circle will activate a panel on this pillar, which will glow blue. If the other blue raid member clicks this panel, they will deactivate 2 of the shielded data cores, one north and one south. This panel will also start a countdown by the master controller. Your objective is to destroy both data cores before this countdown reaches 0. If the countdown reaches 0, you will fail that subphase and a rectifier add will spawn, as well as an overall damage increase to the corrupted AI mechanic. However, if you destroy both data cores within the allotted time limit, the subphase will be complete and you'll move into the next subphase. This is the general idea of Phase 1 and the 4 colored subphases that go along with it. The following is some information specific to Phase 1. The order of the subphases are blue, orange, purple, and yellow. The location of each color's panel is depicted here. If any subphase is failed, the following damage scaling occurs to the corrupted AI mechanic annotated here. You'll see the specific time limits for each phase here. Finally, I've listed here the adds specific to each subphase, their approximate spawn times, and the amount you'll face. Alright, so now that you have a general understanding of how Phase 1 works, let's go into specifics. So as you start the fight, you'll want your 2 blue members to break off and kill their spheres. This will apply the blue obtuse buff, which you'll need for Phase 2. Kill all the adds currently in the room. Once this is done or near done, send your blue center player to the middle and your blue channel player to the panel. As the shields drop from the data cores, have your DPS attack the north one and then move together to the south core and kill it. You can split your DPS during this if your DPS are comfortable enough pushing cores by themselves within the time limit. I suggest though having DPS stay together to benefit from each class and spec specific debuffs applied to the core. At any rate, as the last core is about to die, it's a good idea to prep your next color team. So if you're going to be next at this point and are orange, break off early and head to the center so that as the core dies you're in place and the orange panel will be immediately available to activate. For the DPS still on cores, make sure to stay on the side where the last core died. The cores always shift right from the last one destroyed. This means as you transition between subphases, you can shift over and target the one to the right beside it and be waiting for the shield to drop so you can start DPSing. This will maximize DPS uptime, so do not run to the other side after the last core dies in each subphase. Just stay where you are and get ready to kill the next. You'll rinse and repeat these procedures until you destroy all cores, at which time you'll start phase 2. So a few specific tips. All adds in this encounter must be taunted and cannot be picked up through normal threat generation. As adds spawn, they will tend to go either to the channeler or the player in the center. Tanks, it is your job to ensure you take control of adds immediately to avoid them hitting your channeler or center raid member. Make sure that as you pick up adds, you bring them in range of the DPS in the center. Whether that be melee or ranged DPS, just make sure that they can help DPS adds when applicable. Finally, the regulators absolutely need to be interrupted when casting end of line. This helps stop increased damage output and will help you better control adds during the fight. You should rotate interrupts between the aggro tank and a DPS or healer located in the center area. If you're tanking a regulator and standing in the circle for a specific color phase, it's even more important you do this so you do not get kicked out of the circle and activate the shields up on the data core. Healers during phase 1 should be very cognizant of where players are, as DPS on cores will likely be out of your range, so you'll need to move to heal them if applicable. Any interrupts you can manage or DPS you can do to help kill adds will be a huge benefit to your group here. Remember the tanks will be hit hardest, so ensure you're watching their health closely. In the event any subphase is failed, you should immediately recall all raid members to the center. Have a tank pick up the rectifier, and all DPS should focus this add and kill it ASAP. Healers should start prepping AoE heals for this. Once the rectifier dies, color members should return to their center or channel position, and DPS should return to the cores to finish them off. Lastly, always prioritize the subphase mechanics over getting your color sphere. Always get your sphere after your specific color subphase has ended. Players in the middle during their subphase can kill one while in the middle and can hit or tag the second. This will bring the second sphere to the middle so that once the subphase is complete, the channeling player can easily find their sphere and kill it without having to wander around trying to find it. If you use this strategy, however, ensure you do not kill the sphere by accident and make sure no one near you is using AoEs, which could potentially destroy the sphere. Okay, let's now discuss Phase 2. As you enter Phase 2, make sure that a tank picks up Operator 9 and any adds still alive are quickly stacked and killed by your DPS. Approximately every 30 seconds, Operator 9 will shield and start channeling Black Obtuse. Each raid member should move to stand in a circle matching their assigned color. After a brief period of time, the circle will be removed. All circles must be removed before Black Obtuse concludes its channel. If not, then more than likely several raid members will die. As you remove these circles, you'll gain the Convex debuff and Operator 9 will lose his Convex buff. Each player can take up to 2 circles of their assigned color, and no more than 2 of the same color ever spawn. This means each member should make sure their color is completely removed. We suggest always doing a 360-degree run around the boss to ensure no colors of your color remain. As soon as Black Obtuse ends, Operator 9 will start to channel Deletion Protocol. Deletion Protocol requires the targeted player and a person with the appropriate Obtuse buff stand with each other before the Deletion Protocol channel completes. We suggest having these two players run into the center directly beneath the boss, since it is easily accessible from any position around the boss. The two players should then physically stand on top of one another. This will cause the player with the Obtuse buff to shield the targeted player, mitigating all damage from Operator 9. Once done, the player previously holding the Obtuse buff will lose it and will be unable to shield any other player. If this is done incorrectly, the player and all other players within 5 meters of the targeted player will die instantly. There are 2 ways to track who is targeted and what color is needed to negate this mechanic. First, there will be a system text that is put out across the screen denoting the player and the color required. The second way is through Operator 9's channel and his target of target. Through this, you can read the color from the channel and the player from his target. The former is the best method in our opinion, and the latter is a good way to double check if you're unsure what was called or who is being targeted for deletion. At any rate, this should be communicated and reacted on quickly since you only have 5 seconds to react. As you progress further into Phase 2 and have less and less players available to shield raid members from deletion, Operator 9 will start to skip deletions and will target a random raid member and hit them for a huge amount of damage. If you're healing this fight, do your best to keep all raid members as close to full health as possible, coming out of Black Obtuse. In the event he skips, at least the player attacked will stand a better chance of surviving the attack. At approximately 90%, 70%, 50%, and 30%, 2 recognizer adds will spawn into the fight. Be sure to kill these as soon as possible, but do not prioritize these over prior mechanics discussed for Phase 2. The best way to handle these are to have members aggroed to the adds, bring them to the center so the tanks can AoE taunt. Then, DPS just kill them as you move around removing your circles. You'll rinse and repeat these mechanics until Operator 9 is defeated. So that's the fight, guys. I know that was a lot to take in, but once you see it and get some practice with the mechanics, you'll see it's a fairly simple fight. Just make sure to get your spheres in Phase 1 and pay attention during Deletion Protocol. Those 2 mechanics are the ones I see players struggle with the most. So if this video helped you, please feel free to pay it forward and help us by dropping us a like and subscribing. If you have any questions, suggestions, tips and tricks, or think of something I may have missed, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. So until next time, guys, take care and enjoy the fight.
Aberrant infestation decried. Blue bisection of system anomaly initiated. Orange equilateral must be achieved. Safety fail-safes. Green nonagon. Gray concave, now probable result. System purge. System purge. System purge. Hypergate seal failure imminent.
Shutdown
Evacuation
requires
protocol
administrator
failed.
authority. I'm sorry. Shutdown requires administrator authority.
Operator response timed out. Please repeat. Ideal. Anomalous. Requesting purple bisector. Where am I? Operator response timed out. Please repeat. Hyperwave resonance approaching yellow scaling.
Adjusting.
Hyperwave resonance approaching. Operator response timed out. Please repeat.
Request. Help me. Invalid. Query. Resubmit.
Operator response timed out. Please repeat. Ideal. Anomalous. Requesting purple bisector. Where am I? Operator response timed out. Please repeat.
Request. Help me. Invalid. Query. Resubmit.
Operator response timed out. Please repeat. Hyperwave resonance approaching yellow scaling.
Adjusting.
Hyperwave resonance approaching.
System failure. Adapting.
Process aborted.